whoa, what are you doing? We can't use that. We'll get, like, sued or something. Just start the show.
Hey everyone, welcome to Let's Get Real. We are back to talk about all things film. With me, as always, my indelible gentlemen, Nick and Tom. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, welcome.
What's up, man?
Glad to be back.
Yeah,
Talk
and
some more movies.
Today we do have a special guest. We have an intruder amongst us, a special guest sitting in with Nick. Nick, why don't you introduce your friend?
This is one of my best friends, and in fact, we just realized this week, this is about, I think, the 10-year anniversary of our friendship of meeting in film school. This is my good friend, Carl.
Yeah, so I'm Carl Rogers. I'm a writer and director. Worked with Nick a lot ever since film school and undergrad, and I've also worked with Tom on films before as well. I've met Will, but never gotten to work with him, unfortunately. And
I like him already. He's a good name dropper. Carl, thanks so much for joining us today. Sadly, you picked a week where we actually are reviewing Crime Macho, but let's not get ahead of ourselves.
That's cool. I think we'll have a lot to talk about, especially from a story perspective, and that's one of the reasons why I'm looking forward to being a part of this, is because I also teach screenwriting to up-and-coming screenwriters.
Oh, cool.
If you're learning screenwriting, you can check out, for listeners, you can check out my YouTube channel, Storylosopher, or storylosopher.com. So,
cool.
Free mini course on there for you, and articles and all that jazz. So
A hell of a self-promoter.
You know what?
That's one reason I like him.
Gotta do it.
I'm not good at that, so being friends with him has helped me be better at that. So I appreciate that. But yeah, no, please, definitely go check out his YouTube channel. He's got great content on there.
Yep. And if you're looking for it, we will add a link to it on our show notes. So just go to our show notes and you hit the link and you will get there. So make it easy.
You know what? You might very well one day be the answer to a trivia question. Who was the first guest on the Let's Get Real podcast way back in the day?
I mean, this is really cool for me because this is my first time being on someone's podcast.
Yeah.
So
This is your first time?
Yeah. First time being on
Oh, I'm
someone's
so
podcast.
sorry.
Yeah. Well, he apologized.
Well, you know what? You never forget your first time. You never forget
That's
your
true.
first time.
And that's why I said I was sorry.
Absolutely.
But anyway, we have a lot to talk about, so let's get right to it. First and foremost, I think there's some news that we want to chat about.
Yes.
A lot of people suing lots of people. And one result happened, right? The original writer of Friday the 13th, Victor Miller. Victor Miller.
Yeah.
Has just gained the rights to Friday the 13th back. Now he sued the producers back in 2016. It's taken this long for him to win the rights back to him. According to the producers, they were saying that he wrote it just on a right to work contract, so he wasn't due anything. But at the end of the day, he created the Jason Voorhees character and franchise. So he has now regained the rights. So that means that everything is up in the air now. No one knows what's going to happen. Like, it was just starting to relaunch itself, and it's going to hit a huge break, like skidding to a halt, because no one knows what that's going to mean in terms of rights from that point out.
Did the most recent Jason, when was the last Jason movie that came out?
They did a remake of Friday the 13th back in, I think, 2009, something like that.
And that's when they were redoing it after the Rob Zombie did.
No, Rob Zombie did Halloween.
Rob Zombie did Halloween. I did see the remake for Friday the 13th.
Yeah, because we had before that it was Freddy versus Jason in 2003, and then there was a 6-year gap, and they did the remake. It's not good. You're not missing anything.
Yeah, it wasn't good. I do remember that one, actually. I did see the 2009 Friday the 13th, and you're correct. There was something to be desired.
It looks exactly like what you would think a Friday the 13th movie in 2009 would look like.
That, you know what's funny was I was thinking that exact same thing. I would say that it was definitely a product of horror films at that point in time.
Very much so.
Which means it was not good.
Well, but more importantly, very recently, actually, LeBron James was thinking about trying to relaunch the Friday the 13th franchise. Believe it or not. LeBron James, yes, that LeBron James was in talks to produce a new entry. Now, there's been what 12 of these
I guess
movies.
he must be a big fan, I guess.
Yeah, and they've made a shirt ton of money. My daughter yelled at me last time because of all the swearing, so I can't do that anymore. But
I mean, good for LeBron. Like when you've got that kind of money that you can just sling it around like that and try to revive one of your favorite film franchises. I mean,
he already did it with he already did it with Space Jam. And if there's anything I learned from Space Jam, you just all that means is you just need to go take like another movie, find your favorite Friday the 13th movie and just redo that.
Although I don't know if there's a place for LeBron in the movie. That might be.
I don't think so. We don't tend to make it long in Friday the 13th movies. So if he's going to change, maybe he'll change it
all that. Yeah, he was going to change all that. He was going to be the brother that finally kills off Jason. He stands up to him.
Oh wow!
Yeah. No, I'm totally making it up.
If there was ever going to be someone who did it being LeBron would be a great pop culture moment. It
sense.
Also would be horrible, but also
I would love to.
It would be fun to look back on.
He'd be the first person in history who's actually taller than Jason in
That's
the
true.
Jason movies. And it would be kind of funny to see a scene where he kills Jason and then not only kills him but then dunks over his corpse.
Yeah.
Just to add insult to injury.
Hold on. I want to see this movie now. Now I want to see the LeBron James versus Jason. Like, I don't even want it to be Friday the 13th. LeBron versus Jason. That's what I want.
Well, now you're going to have to talk to Victor Miller about getting the rights to make that happen because now he owns it. And this has opened up a whole can of worms.
Yep.
Because this is a precedent to all kinds of people suing all kinds of others about right to work stuff. Right?
Isn't that something that's going on right now with Marvel? Marvel is currently suing the estates of creators like Steve Ditko and Stan Lee, trying to preemptively get the rights back for Spider-Man, because the same simple Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, several different characters, because the same thing's kind of happening where the rights are coming up. I believe, how many years is it, Will? Is it 50, 60 years, something like that?
50 years, I believe, yeah.
50 years, yeah. Okay, so at 50 years, so the rights could potentially revert back to those estates at this point in time. And here's my thing. I've heard a lot of people say, in a lot of different cases, situations where I guess the rights should go back to those writers or those particular creators. And what I think is this. What I really think is, I think they should get re-upped on some more money every 50 years, maybe to those estates and everything there. Because, I mean, essentially, that's what they're going to be looking for. Right. Even if you got the rights back to Spider-Man or something there, what are you going to do? You're going to turn around and try to flip it and be like, yo, DC, you guys want to make a Spider-Man movie? Because Marvel's going to pay me to make a Spider-Man movie. How much are you going to pay me to?
and that's why Marvel is suing Disney, suing the writers in anticipation of that, because they don't want to have that conversation. Because absolutely, if someone says to DC, hey, you want Spider-Man? He's going to go, hell yeah.
Hell yeah. I want Spider-Man. Welcome to the Justice League.
He's already an Avenger. Why not?
Yeah. Just Spider-Man does it all. Actually, if there was any character that I would want to just be cross-brand to like every single comic book, Spider-Man's not a bad pick. It would be kind of cool to see Spider-Man everywhere. Let him show up in a Spawn comic too.
Well, I mean, Spider-Man did do a lot of that type of crossovers. Like he showed up in X-Men, he showed up in Fantastic Four, and in Avengers. He was the guy that was a crossover. So why not? Why not cross universes?
Why not? I think it'd be cool. But I see where Marvel would definitely want to prevent that from happening. I see where even the it's kind of a big loss even for studios losing Jason Voorhees. But my whole thing would be, especially when you've been doing things with these characters this entire time. So I'm kind of two minds on it, because on one mind, I feel that it is kind of crazy that someone created a character, and then now you get to make all these billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars off of that character until the end of time. You know what I'm saying? Or at least for 50 straight years. And then now at the 50-year mark, now you just continue to keep doing that. I do like the idea of, hey, especially when we're talking about like Stan Lee. You see what I'm saying? We're talking about Stan Lee. It's easy to say, okay, this guy was working for Marvel when he created this particular thing, so Marvel owns it, right? I do think there should be a certain amount of ownership that should stick with Marvel because of that, out of fairness. They paid for it.
Absolutely.
Okay? But at the same token, the idea that estate, that his descendants and everything there never get additional money or anything there up to that point, unless they're going to pay them every time they use these characters in some way, shape, or form.
I would say some form of royalties are in order,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Some kind of royalties, I think, would be in order. Because, I mean, they did create a long-lasting character.
Well, the good news for them is that this lawsuit, this Friday the 13th lawsuit, actually sets precedent that makes it really favorable to the writers because of this. Because it was the same exact thing, right to work contract. So
right.
if a court decided that this guy Victor Miller is the rightful owner of Jason because he wrote him, well, that doesn't bode really well for Marvel.
Carl, are you eating?
Yeah, he's got
eating during the podcast.
He's got.
There's no eating in podcasts.
There's no eating in podcasts. I know this is your first time, but we don't do that here, sir.
Nick's mom.
We do a lot of things, but that's not one of them.
To be fair, we're on vacation, so you know.
The perfect answer to everything. I'm on vacation.
Yeah. It's a good.
Well, Nick, while you're on vacation, what have you been watching down there in the lovely Outer Banks?
Yeah.
So I have been. There's a couple things I'll throw at you real quick. I have to bring this one up because I just want to get Will's reaction. I watched probably your favorite movie ever, Will, the other night, Arachnophobia.
No. Oh God, no.
Are you afraid of spiders, brother?
I hate spiders. God, I hate spiders.
So my question is, have you seen it or have you always avoided it because of your fear of spiders?
Not in a million years will I ever see that movie. No way. Why would I put myself through that?
Right. Have you seen it, Tom?
I have not seen Arachnophobia. Actually, I think I did a long time ago, like on like the Sci-Fi Channel, back when, forever ago. But no, did I like watch Arachnophobia? Never.
Right.
It's never been something that enticed me.
It's not a bad little movie. I mean, it came out the year I was born, 1990. And it's a nice little kind of movie of, spiders come into a town and they start killing people. And it's not a bad little, it's not scary, but it's well put together. Like John Goodman has a really good bit part in it as like this exterminator who like takes his job way too seriously, but it's funny.
As he always does.
Yeah. And so that was just, so I couldn't find anything else to watch the other night. I was looking for something to keep watching. I wanted to keep my horror movie streak alive, and that was adjacent enough in the horror genre. And I just couldn't find anything else. So I decided to watch that.
Now, do you own it or did you watch it on?
I watched it on Prime.
So you watched it on the web?
Yeah. Yes, on the web.
Oh, wait! Very well done, Carl.
Yeah,
now,
that's another thing. Before we got started, I should have mentioned Will and Carl would be kindred spirits for several reasons, but one of them is they are huge into puns.
So metaphysics, puns, alien franchise.
Yeah, we're gonna have to talk after this, Carl. No doubt about it. But
you just add him on Facebook so you can get his daily, Will's daily dad jokes.
You don't want to miss those.
Yes, he posts daily puns on Facebook.
Oh, I do. Hey, but little known fact: my fear of spiders actually comes from a film.
Oh, really? Which film is it?
Yeah, The Incredible Shrinking Man.
Really?
I hated when he was fighting that spider. That was the worst. And then topped it off. After that, I watched The Fly, and that was even worse.
Which version of The Fly, though?
No way.
Are you talking OG Fly from the 50s?
OG,
or
the original, baby. Yeah, absolutely.
You're talking the OG one from the 50s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the original one. Yeah, that was awful. Like awful. So from that point forward, those two movies ruined me for spiders for the rest of my life. So, no.
In your defense, though, I don't really think spiders are well loved around the world by most people. Like most people tend to be afraid of spiders.
No. It's a common one.
It's a common one. So don't feel bad there, Will. I mean, not that it sounds like you feel bad at all, but I see what Nick's trying to do. Trying to
No, but I
bring
do
up
feel much better
arachnophobia.
now that you say that.
Hey, Carl, what
But-
have you been watching?
Let's see. I only got here yesterday.
Uh-huh.
Well, what did we watch today? What did I show you today?
Oh yeah, today. So Nick showed me Jaws 4.
Oh, there was a
I'd
fourth
never
one?
seen.
Yeah, that's the one in space, right?
Which one?
It's
there was
the
a
one.
fourth
So for anyone who's seen it, it's the one where the shark roars.
Okay,
It
yeah, I
roars,
have seen that one.
and Michael Caine is in it. It's the one where they're in the Bahamas. And I just told him, I was like, I brought both Jaws 3 and 4 down here because I'm like, they're both bad, but like 4 might be slightly more entertainingly bad. So, but what was your impression of it?
Yeah, because I'd only
You brought
seen.
killer shark movies to the beach with you?
Of course.
Yeah, absolutely. We're at the beach.
No, right here.
Like what do you watch when you're at the beach?
I don't go to the beach.
Nothing says let's go for a midnight swim like watching Jaws.
Oh,
You're right.
But yeah, what were your thoughts of it, sir?
I'd only seen the first one. I'd never seen any of the others, although I'd seen some clips.
Yeah, I made him watch the first one too.
That's pretty much all you need to see, though.
That's
Oh,
it.
I don't
That's
think
No,
I
fair
watched
enough.
that with you.
I think we did. I thought we
We did?
did. I think we did
Maybe-
years ago.
Maybe
I think we did.
I don't remember for sure. But I had heard about how bad and seen some clips of the third and fourth, and I was like, hey, Nick, let's do that. And it honestly was not as bad as I expected it to be based on its reputation. You know,
Mm.
it was like, well, cinematography was great,
Yeah.
and
It's not a poorly made film, but there are elements of it that
some
are
good
like
acting.
really weird.
but then there's just like these moments where it's like, what just happened?
Yeah, like Chief Brody's wife has like shark sense, where she can like sense the shark is doing stuff weirdly,
Wow.
and like she has flashbacks to events that she was never present for, which is weird. Like,
Yeah.
you know, so
that sets a whole new meaning to the term "jumping the shark."
Wow.
we're not going to. Tom and I are not going to
Wow.
make it through this podcast. I think Tom and I are going to.
That's not. Yeah. Wow. He did it.
All right. Tom,
Well,
save us. What have you been watching?
Save you. I don't know that I can save you, but I have started watching. I just finished Nine Perfect Strangers is the name of it. I finished it out. It was it's a show on. Well, I watched it on Hulu, but it's a limited series by David E. Kelly. You know, does the what is it? The Undoing with Nicole Kidman. He works with Nicole Kidman a lot on a lot of limited series and shows. But the limited series is pretty crazy because it's got Melissa McCarthy's in it, Nicole Kidman, as I had mentioned before. This one actor is really good from. I can never remember the guy's name. I can never remember his name. And then it's
that guy.
That guy, that guy. And he's one of those guys. Like when you see him, you'll be like, "Oh, that guy," and I'll be like, "Yeah, that's the guy that I was telling you about." But no, it's kind of crazy because it's a there's these 9 different. And Michael Shannon's there. So
Okay, nice.
He does a fantastic job. And so, but there's these 9 strangers that were brought to this resort that's run by Nicole Kidman, and ultimately what you find out is, she's got them going through these therapy classes with each other and little exercises, trying to get them to open up for various different reasons, right? And we're talking completely different people from each other. None of these people know each other. And so you've got like a family that's there. Michael Shannon brings his wife and his daughter. You've got this other couple with, because what's her name? Not Margot Robbie. What's her name?
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Not Margot. A lot of blonde women.
You know what I mean? Not Margot Robbie.
You know what helps? It helps when you remember who's in
When
the
you can
thing you're
remember the
watching.
name. Yes, I have her name like Samara Weaving. That's it. That's it.
That's not
Yeah,
who I
there
was
you go.
going to say, but
Right
okay.
off the tip of my
I got you.
tongue.
That's not Margot Robbie, man. Come on, we all know that. Anyway,
Literally,
so yes, no, but it's actually a really good show. It's one of those ones where there's mysteries here and everything there, but now that I've gotten wrapped up with it, I thought it ended pretty solidly. but it had there was a little bit of pacing lull in the middle. But it's pretty cool. I thought it was a good one.
I just want to say real
it was a
quick,
fun ride.
piggybacking off that, I just want to say real quick about Michael Shannon. He's one of those actors that, like, he's not always in good movies, but I always like him. Like, he's all, like, I feel like he's always good, even if the movies that he's in are not necessarily great. I always like Michael Shannon in almost anything he does.
Kind of
I
like
enjoy him
Michael
as well.
Caine in, Jaws 4.
Yeah, like Michael Caine in Jaws 4. It's the one.
I think that's the same. Yeah, that's the same thing. Yeah, I always enjoy Michael Caine in anything I tend to see him in as well.
Yeah,
even Tenet, even though I couldn't really hear what he was saying.
Well, it's ironic that you watched that movie or that show, because what I've been watching, I'm halfway through The Undoing.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That's
right.
That ends. I will say this. That ends pretty well. you
Great.
know.
Well, I'm halfway through it, so no spoilers here. But
I'm not going to tell you.
It's at first I was like, man, it's taking a long time to develop. But then once it developed, I'm like, oh, okay. I think I'm in for the ride.
Yeah.
But I just recently finished, right back to back almost. Was it The White Lotus? You guys seen that?
Oh, I haven't seen that. Is that good?
No. It is batshit crazy, but so good.
Gotcha.
It's one of those shows where week after week, or show after show, you're going, where the hell are they going? Where are they going with this? And it's just so entertaining to watch these dysfunctional rich people treat the hotel staff like total dirt and then get their comeuppance. It's actually really cool. It's really cool. It's fun to watch. It's a fun watch.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's in White Lotus. That's on HBO Max.
Yep. They're all HBO Max. I'm a big fan of HBO Max recently.
I am too. I gotta tell you, if I'm being honest, I would say for selection, especially with their movie selection, they're really good. They're really kind of like the underdog that you want everybody to kind of get more into, because I want HBO Max to stick around just because I love their movie selection every month.
No, the HBO Max
really
is
great
killing
selection.
it. They're killing it with the selection. Like, they have, honestly, in my opinion, it might be my personal favorite, like, collection of movies on any streaming platform.
But not just movies; their series are off the hook.
Oh yeah, good lord, it's HBO. Like, I mean,
right?
Like, there's Curb Your Enthusiasm, like The Sopranos, The Wire. Like, you've got so many amazing. You just got so much amazing content from those guys, because they've been killing it for. I mean, HBO was like
for a long time.
At the end in the 90s, HBO was doing to TV what TV would later become, like in the 2000s with like Breaking Bad. Like, they were making TV way better than it was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's kind of like reminds me of when Netflix first came out with House of Cards, and then the whole idea of the Netflix original series kind of blew up. That was always a big thing anytime they dropped one of those. I was like, before that, it was HBO.
Yeah.
HBO with the series, and they drop it and whether it's coming back next season or not, they just do a limited series like The Undoing or something like that, and they hook you for a month or two, and then they have another show start.
Yep.
And it was kind of and it was always a really good Sunday night staple. But that being said, I think that the HBO Max streaming service itself, I think it gets a really bad rap. That's kind of undeservingly so. Thanks, Christopher Nolan, for starting it off as the worst service on the planet. But ultimately, it's just not that. Say what?
I was gonna say, it doesn't get a bad rap for me. I tell people all the time. Like, matter of fact, I think it was just this week. They had a special offer going on where they were like doing a half price rate or something like that, and I put that on Facebook, and I was like, "Yo, if you've even been thinking about getting HBO Max, if you've ever liked an HBO show or been curious to see what movies they've got, insanely good deal for what they've got on that service. Like, it's so great
on it."
The one bad thing about HBO Max, and it's really not their fault because they only have a limited amount of time for rights, is that I'm used to the Netflix model where you just slap something onto your playlist or your wish list, and then you forget about it until you have time. You go back to it, and then you watch it. On HBO Max, if you don't watch it, it's gone.
Yeah,
right.
Like, it does not
does
stay.
happen.
That's weird.
So that's
but I gotta be honest. Like, for me, And I think it depends on what films you're talking about. If it's one of their newer releases and everything, yeah, they move quick. They move quickly. It's like they're
Yes.
there for that month. And if you don't take time in that month to watch it, then, you got a new slate when you come through. But then you also have a lot of movies that do tend to stay. Stuff that's in the Warner Brothers, most of the stuff in the Warner Brothers system of everything does stay there. Like Blade Runner 2049 or whatever I've had in my queue. I almost stopped to watch it like 2 different times again this past week. It was like I went to go watch Cry Macho, and then like my controller went right over to Blade Runner, and
Well, and that might be as good a segue as any into what we're really here for today. I mean, we're talking about HBO Max, and you were just and you just
But
admitted.
are we really here for that?
Oh,
Honestly,
I'm here
really?
for it. I'm here for it. I think Carl's here for it too, because we watched it. We watched it last night.
We just expanded, gave all this love to HBO Max, saying how awesome their stuff is and all that kind of stuff. And then who the hell picked Cry Macho to review this week? Because that person needs to be shot.
That was you.
That was you, Will.
That was definitely you.
That was you.
Well, you know what? I didn't mind the movie that much then. I was actually not so bad now that I think about it.
Yeah, Nick, run it back. Make sure we show footage of him saying, "Let's." Exactly.
Run back I'll have to go into the Wayback Machine and grab the clip him saying that and put it in there.
So Cry Macho is as always. We're going to start off with no spoilers. So if you really are interested in putting yourself through the Cry Macho experience, you can listen to this part of it now. We will warn you before we actually start raking the mud.
Let me sit
with
back
the
and
spoilers.
enjoy this. Go ahead, tell me.
So this is kind of going to be more of this is kind of going to be more of us talking to Tom about this movie because he didn't do his homework. So this is going to be half talking about the movie and half just giving Tom shit for not doing his homework.
No,
honestly, if you would ask my mother, she would have told you I've never done my homework.
Now, I will say this without going into any details because it's just not something we want to talk about here. I can understand with some stuff that's going on. Clint Eastwood has a striking resemblance to someone that is going through a very difficult time right now. So I can understand why maybe that reminder is not something that we necessarily needed at this point in time. But so we're going to let you off the hook for now, Tom. But
thank you.
This is the latest passion project of Clint Eastwood. And before we even get into our reactions, I need to ask, what are your thoughts of Clint Eastwood and his films?
I will say I'm a big fan. I like Clint Eastwood. For me, like I put it this way, like I wasn't alive. Obviously, I was not alive like in the 50s and 60s when like Westerns were like super popular and stuff like that. So I've never been a fan of John Wayne. I've never understood the whole John Wayne thing. I've always just figured maybe you had to be alive at the time to get it. But I've always liked Clint Eastwood. Like, in my opinion, Clint Eastwood would kick John Wayne's ass. Like, the Man with No Name, to me, I don't care who John Wayne is playing in a movie, the Man with No Name would kick his ass 10 times out of 10, twice on Sunday.
Definitely.
I like Clint Eastwood as a guy, as an actor, but as a director, I mean, we'll get into how we feel about this movie, but he's made some bangers, though. Like, I think, like, $1 Million Baby, to me, that is a fantastic – it's a heartbreaking film, but it is fantastic. Mystic River, Unforgiven, like, Gran Torino. He's made some really, really awesome movies.
Heartbreak Ridge.
Like, yeah.
There's no doubt that the man is extremely talented, right? But, Tom, what are your thoughts on Mr. Eastwood?
I echo pretty much everything that Nick just said. Clint Eastwood, let me tell you, my father loves cowboy movies. That is what my father would do every Saturday morning. Like when he would unwind, it would be sitting there watching cowboy movies. It doesn't matter if it's the same ones that he's seen a billion times. He'll put it like on the Encore Western channel. He runs it all day, right?
So he's a big American football fan.
So here's the thing. I've seen a lot of John Wayne and everything there, but I agree. He's in no way, shape, or form. Like, I guess it's a timing kind of thing with like when I was born and what I saw. So I saw more Clint Eastwood than John Wayne just naturally. And Clint Eastwood has always kind of been that original badass, in a way. Like when I think about cowboys, my first thought is normally Clint Eastwood standing there with, and he's got his hat, he's got the
Poncho.
the poncho and everything, and that's the Cowboys. That's Clint Eastwood. So, and that's him there as an actor, and where I think he fits in pop culture there. Him as a director, I gotta tell you, I personally enjoy him more as a director than as uh, uh, an action star. Because honestly, everything he did action wise, save for like Unforgiven and stuff like that, was kind of before my time.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Everything else from there is where we're at. But I got to tell you, the work that he did, I love Gran Torino. I really like Million Dollar Baby as well. I also really liked Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima.
Yeah.
Both of those films. I remember. I don't even. I'm gonna be honest. Aside from being like a film snob with most people, I don't watch a lot of foreign films. I hate reading a whole bunch of subtitles and everything.
Yeah.
There's a break sometimes for me in my cinematic experience and everything there. But I really sought out to go see Letters from Iwo Jima because I had seen Flags from My Father and the way that they connected and everything there. And personally, as a director, I remember there's one point where I had seen it was like an interview someone had done about Clint Eastwood, and they were like, "Yeah, he always finishes on time." And they mentioned how when he does a production, it finishes on time. And he said even if he has to do one take. So I even on set when I'm shooting, when I let my crew know, I was like, "All right, we're going to Eastwood this one." That's my way of saying,
Yeah.
one time. We're doing it one time. That's how much time we've got because we got to get the hell out of here. You know what I mean? So we're gonna Eastwood this, nail it, and I don't think every movie's been perfect or a hit, obviously, but and different ones hit other people in different ways. But man, I don't know. There's something about Gran Torino. I really liked Gran Torino.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are all three in agreement, all four. I assume, Carl, you feel the same way.
Oh yeah.
In agreement that Clint Eastwood is a rock star when it comes to directing. So now you understand why I picked Cry Macho to review this week. Right? I sat down on that couch. I turned on that HBO Max.
Yeah.
So excited because it has been a minute since Clint released a movie, and I was so in for it. I was there.
Yep, you were going.
And then it started. And all I could say is the pacing matched his age.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've been this disappointed in a movie in a long time because I really love the man. I love his work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just thought this was the one passion project too much, right? He's 91 years old. And he's still trying to show the world that he is macho and he is tough and he is attractive to the ladies. And he's even at 91.
We don't need you to tell us that, Clint.
Yeah. At the end of the day, he's none of those anymore, and it's okay. He's done his service. He's paid his dues. He doesn't need to be that anymore. He can be different now. And he did do it on some of those older movies, but like he wanted to go back to that heyday and be that rough and tumble stranger, the cowboy that saves the day and gets the 50-year-old lady at the end and all that kind of stuff. I did not enjoy this movie at all. I don't know how many times I tuned out. In fact, I had to stop watching the movie for a bit from one day to the next because I was so like, I had to wake myself up. Yeah.
I got to ask a question. I got to ask one question on this. And I know I'm the guy who didn't do his homework. I know. All right. But I do have a question. Did you guys pay attention to any of the advertising? Because the advertising totally let me know this was going to be a bad movie.
I didn't because I had in Clint, I trust.
Look, I trust Clint too. But I know when someone's covering for a bad movie. Okay?
I didn't watch trailers for that reason. I didn't have to.
Every trailer, let me tell you something. I saw the trailers. Every trailer, they were like, "This is a Clint Eastwood movie." Clint Eastwood is in the movie. One of the best directors you've ever seen is directing another movie, and he's in it. And it's like, okay, what's the movie about? Doesn't matter. Clint Eastwood. I just was like, okay, I get it. I get it. We're selling this entirely on the fact that we trust Clint Eastwood.
Right.
And so if you're doing that, you don't trust that your movie's good enough to actually entice me to watch it.
I agree. And unfortunately, now this movie is now forcing me to think every time I see a new Clint Eastwood movie come out to think, do I feel lucky?
God,
It's Will, that you talk
Yes.
about.
Have you not met me? I mean, did you not expect that?
you know what? Shame on me.
So I see Carl chomping at the bit to put in his 2 cents. So Carl,
Yeah,
the
come
floor
on,
is yours.
Carl. Come on, Carl.
So you said that you're really disappointed by the movie. Did not enjoy seeing it. Constantly tuning out. I think we had similar reactions to the movie, but we actually had a good time watching it. But not because it was.
I mean, we had a good time watching it because we were like Mystery Science theatering it the whole time. It was me and Carl and my dad, and we all were here. We're at our beach house here in the Outer Banks, and we were all in the living room upstairs watching it together. And yeah, I mean, it's weird. Like, I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to watch because I do love Clint Eastwood, and I had seen the trailer. And from the trailer, I was
knew better.
Well, no, I mean, it didn't occur to me automatically that it was going to be a bad movie. But I was hoping it was one of those things where you see the trailer and it's like, okay, it's Clint Eastwood and this kid. So maybe this is like, he goes to get this kid and then they have like these conversations about like life and philosophy, and the movie's called Cry Macho, so I'm like, maybe I was like, this could be really interesting because Clint Eastwood is 91, so maybe it's a movie about like not only reflecting on what macho means in general and maybe tearing down that sort of alpha male bullshit stereotype, but Clint Eastwood has been a symbol of machismo and macho in American culture, so there could be an interesting meta connection there where not only are you reflecting on the theme of macho in general, but Clint Eastwood, the man, as this character, is reflecting on his own sense of what is macho and explaining to the kid about so there's a lot of really interesting places I thought they could go with that, but that's not really what happens. And
are you kidding me?
It was that. Well, we'll get into it. We'll get into it. Don't worry. So I think for the spoiler-free version, I think we're kind of all in agreement that we were very disappointed by it. It's not a very good movie. Before we get to the spoiler section, though, I'd like to allow Carl to do this since he is the guest. I've got the synopsis pulled up here, just a short little synopsis of what the movie is for those who maybe don't know or haven't even heard of it. But I would like you to just go ahead and read it and set the table, because when we get into talking about this, it'll not only help people who haven't seen it, it might help Tom a little bit, and just to give a little extra context as to what this is actually about. Because some of our criticisms, I think, are going to lean heavily on a lot of I don't know what the hell's going on in this movie type thing. So let's give a synopsis of what it is supposed to be real quick, just to put that context out there. Take it away, sir.
Well, hold on. I just want to say that I think you already helped Tom when you said don't watch this movie.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, let's go ahead and hear.
Should I use some kind of voice, or
I think let's just do it straight.
All right.
Let's just do it
In
straight.
the world. Oh, sorry.
So I will also add that this is based on a novel.
Yes.
That's something. That
that was lost in
yes
the advertisement. I didn't notice that at all.
And I kind of like Will went into this completely fresh. Like, I had not seen a trailer or anything, whereas Nick had. But
yeah.
Anyway, a one-time rodeo star and washed-up horse breeder in 1978 takes a job from an ex-boss to bring the man's young son home and away from his alcoholic mother. Crossing rural Mexico on their way back to Texas, the unlikely pair faces an unexpectedly challenging journey during which the world-weary horseman may find his own sense of redemption through teaching the boy what it means to be a good man.
And so that's what that is what you think it's going to be based on the trailer. That's the movie that I kind of thought we were going to get.
Yeah.
should we just go ahead and get to the spoiler section now? Because I think we've pretty much confirmed that none of us really enjoyed this movie or thought it was good. And
I have a lot to say. I even took notes.
Yeah,
during
Carl
the movie.
Carl took notes. I didn't need to take notes on this one. Like, we just watched it last night, and everything that I was saying during the movie is very vividly still in my head.
Right.
So
Okay.
should we go ahead and just open up the spoiler section now?
Yeah. This is spoiler alert warning. Wah, wah, right? We need to get a siren or something, Nick. When you edit this thing, just write do the so from this point forward, if you've not watched Cry Macho and somehow, some way you still are interested in watching it, now's not the time to listen to the podcast. So Tom is walking away.
No, I'm not going to watch this movie.
Right.
I'll say this.
If you just don't care, then stick around because we do have some things to talk about in this movie. So, all right. You have been duly warned. From this point forward, spoilers abound.
Yeah.
Mr. Albertson, I can't hold you back any further. So,
man. I mean, where to even, like, I'll try to
go through it sequentially, like in story
I'm going to
order?
try to do that. I'm going to try to do that because I feel like, especially because Tom hasn't seen it, it'll probably help him kind of gain an understanding too. And I feel like with this movie, you almost need to do that because the movie is so, like, to go out of order would obfuscate things even further than the movie already does. Because
it's saying something.
Yeah, because here's the thing. Like, so the movie starts out basically with like Clint Eastwood like at his place with Dwight Yoakam, who's like his boss and stuff like that. And you get this very quick in the beginning, like a very quick visual representation of like these magazine clippings that are basically like talking about who Clint Eastwood was back in the day. So it kind of sets him up as like, okay, he was this rodeo guy, blah blah blah.
Until the last one.
Yes.
Which turns into a black and white film reel.
Yes.
Of him actually falling off his horse and breaking his back, apparently.
Right.
But they only showed that after we'd gotten that opening scene with all of the backstory dump.
Yeah. So you get
weird dialogue scene.
You get very like clunky exposition in the form of dialogue, which is I feel like is so uncharacteristic of a Clint Eastwood film. Like you literally just have Dwight Yoakam saying things, and I'm thinking to myself,
Clint Eastwood, about Clint Eastwood, like it's almost as if he is saying, it's almost as if he is like the script reading itself out loud, like to get the movie going. Like that's kind of how bad some of the dialogue is. After that, we see the newspaper clippings and the little film reel of him breaking his back, which we've heard about. Oh, the accident or whatever, which could be one of two accidents that are pivotal in his life. And so we're not.
And the inciting incident is basically that like Dwight Yoakam is his boss and blah blah blah, but he fires him in one scene, and then it jumps to a year later. So it's he's like, yeah, you don't work for me anymore, basically. And then it's like, okay, so that happened, and then it's a year later.
I'm sorry. Okay, so
it's almost like we didn't need Dwight in that first part of the movie at all. Like I didn't need to see.
That's kind of what I'm saying. It's weird because like things just kind of happen in this movie. It's one of those movies where like stuff just happens, and then another thing just happens, and then another thing just happens
because reasons.
Yeah, and it's weird because that's not a Clint Eastwood movie. You don't expect that from a filmmaker of his caliber. Like, frankly, you know what I mean? Right. But yeah, and then basically it cuts to a year later, and then Dwight Yoakam is just basically like, yeah, so like my kid's in Mexico, and like my ex-wife is a bitch or whatever. Can you just go get the kid back for me? Like,
and it's also super weird that they don't set up their relationship very well.
No,
because we find out throughout the film how the boss and Clint Eastwood have worked together for so long and how the impact they've had on each other's lives.
We're told that. You never
we don't
see
that. In the beginning, we have him being really mean to Clint Eastwood.
Yes.
Fires him. And then in the very next scene, it says 1 year later.
Yeah.
And then it's like he's like feeling sorry for him and is trying to be nice to him and then he's trying to get him to do something for him. And so the relationship doesn't make sense.
No.
It's like they could have had some tension there, but they don't. And then on top of that, there's no like friction or conflict in order to get Clint Eastwood to say yes for the task. He's just
not
like,
at all.
Well, I guess I owe you one, so okay.
Right.
It's like
it's more like this.
Yeah, but it's like it's crazy. Literally 15 seconds earlier, we just saw him fire you.
Yeah.
And you were pissed, and then it just literally fades out, fades in, and now it's like, hey, go get my kid. And he's like, well, okay, like I'll go do it.
Right.
Like, and
so Tom, you sucked in yet?
Yeah, like
I'm very confused. Like, so here, so
exactly.
let me just
That's how we felt. And dude,
Let
this
me-
is
let
like
me
the
just
first
see-
5 minutes of the film that we've just described to you.
This is
Like,
just 5 minutes. Okay, so
all
let me
this has
see if
happened
I've
in
got
this
this.
like
I
5
want to make
minutes.
sure I understand this. Okay, so in the opening scene, it does a flashback on friggin' who Clint Eastwood's supposed to be.
That's after
His
the
buddy,
opening. Yeah.
his buddy is his boss. He fires him.
Yes.
Then you get a year-long jump,
Yep.
Yes.
and they're friends again.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, so the movie
After firing.
the
Okay.
beginning of the movie is 1979, then you jump ahead 1 year. So the rest of the entire film is set in the year 1980. So it is a period piece as well, which isn't, I mean, it's not the biggest deal in the world, but it's just a good thing to know. It's a period piece.
It is one of the
I
things.
gotta tell you,
was the
so
period
far,
but-
I want to say that I'm more hyped for what Nick thought this movie was going to be.
Yeah,
And-
Nick
Weren't
explained
we
it.
all? Weren't we all?
The movie.
Well, and so then he goes, so he's like, okay, go get my kid. Okay, fine. I'll go get your kid. And he goes down to Mexico. He does it. He goes down to Mexico and finds the kid's mom, who's like in some kind of like Scarface villa or whatever. And like,
Just a Scarface villa in
yeah,
particular.
but it's not, but again, it's one of these things that there's no, like, we don't really learn anything about her. Like, what is she doing? How did she get to this place in
Well,
life?
she's a drunk, right?
Yeah. Does she own this place? Does she?
That's
live
her
with this
characteristic.
lady who owns it? Like.
Yeah, and so he goes there and he confronts her, and this scene is weird too, because it's another scene where it's like he goes there, talks to her, says why he's there, and she's like, I don't know where my kid is, and then she tries to like seduce him.
Oh, that happens later.
Is that-
What?
Yeah, that's later.
Okay,
So-
my
so
bad.
the
I'm sorry.
first-
I'm
so-
conflating two scenes. That's my
Yeah. So
fault.
the first time they meet, he's like, "I'm here to take the kid for your ex-husband," and she's like, "Oh, well, did you know that he already sent 2 other people to come get him, and they couldn't find him?" And it almost makes it seem like she's protective of her son and that she wants to keep him and doesn't want him to go back to the ex-husband. And then later in the same scene, they're talking about it, and she's like, you can have him, but you'll never find him. Whereas a couple seconds before, she was like, you can't take him, he's mine.
Yeah, it's very weird. There's a lot of that in this movie. A lot of like people saying one thing 1 second and then saying the opposite the next second.
Where is he?
I think that was an
I don't know.
attempt. I think that was an attempt at showing people why the father wanted the kid back, because she was an alcoholic and she's just terrible for the kid to be at. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, there's a huge disconnect before we get any further, because he crosses the border. Mike crosses the border, the Mexican border, I'm assuming from the United States.
From Texas.
Yeah.
And next thing I know, he's in Mexico City. Now, I don't know if you know geography.
That's not possible.
That's a good point.
That's not how that
No,
goes.
I don't know if you know geography, but Mexico City is in the middle of the damn country.
Yeah.
Hundreds of
you're
miles away from the border.
I mean, I think they do show him camping out like one night beside
Come
the road,
on.
maybe, but
Yeah,
But
but
yeah,
you know what though? That you bring up a good point, because that's not the only weird time jump.
yeah,
That's
there's a
in
lot
this
of time
movie.
jumps.
Like he finds the kid like down the street, I'm assuming, but who knows? Because maybe he went a long distance. But
Well, no, let's go even further than that. Let's get closer. He stumbles on a cockfighting ring,
yes,
one of which in Mexico City there are millions, or at least thousands, and
Right.
just so happens that he stumbles on the exact cockfighting ring that the kid is at.
yes,
And he's the kid there, and
Yeah,
he
and
obviously just
Right.
knows that this is the one.
yeah. And again, you
Yes.
have to remember
And-
this stuff is happening so quickly, one right after the other. He goes to talk to the lady. There's that weird dialogue back and forth, and then literally like in the next scene, oh, I found the kid now.
Oh,
Yeah.
and not only that, but he recognizes the kid from a picture when he was 6 years old, and the kid is now what, like
13.
16, 17?
Or-
yeah.
yeah.
I
He's,
don't know
he's
about
probably
you.
like 16.
Yeah, you're right, 16.
But I did not look at 16
right.
like I looked when I was 6. Not
No.
even close. So he just
No.
happens to recognize the kid. Right.
I
Hey,
still
look,
had nice hair.
it's a young Mexican boy. This must be now. To be fair, I feel like that's the kind of thing that a 90-year-old white man would think. Like, hey, look, here's a young Mexican boy. He must be
I'm
the
not
one.
Monolito.
But there's so many Mexican boys running around in Mexico.
You just picked one and took him home.
He's got it.
But from that point forward, it became a road buddy story with an old man, a kid, and his pet rooster.
Was that at least good?
Well, here's the thing.
I'm not kidding.
Before we move on, though, I have to say this about the cockfighting scene. So here's what happens. He gets to the cockfighting thing. There's all that's going on. The cops just show up randomly to the cockfight, and everybody clears out.
In Mexico?
Here's what Clint Eastwood. So the cops show up, and everybody scatters, right? The cops come in. They're like breaking everything up. Clint Eastwood basically just scoots behind some crates, and
I forgot about that.
Yeah. So, dude, this is why Tom, you have to watch this movie because, like, some of this shit you will not believe unless you see it for yourself. I'm not kidding. Clint Eastwood, literally 90-year-old Clint Eastwood, just kind of slowly scoots behind some crates. I shit you not. They fade out, fade to black, fade back in. The cops are gone. Clint Eastwood scoots out from behind the crates, and then the chicken is still there. The rooster's still there. He catches the chicken and then calls out for the boy, who also happens to still be there, who just pops up from behind some boxes. So we're made to believe that the cops showed up, did a raid on a cockfight, and this old man and this boy just hid behind some boxes for a second, and everybody left, and they're the only two left there.
Let me get this straight. That means that these cops are both the most efficient cops in all of Mexico, because they just showed up to this cockfight and were like, "Hey, we're busting you guys," right? They clear everybody out in record time, so they're also the least efficient police in all of Mexico because they managed to not catch, these
the
two
old white guy and the young kid.
Yeah, the old white guy and the young kid who were just hiding behind a couple of boxes.
Yeah. So anyway,
I'll buy that.
With what? So
right,
Will,
so
you continue the story. Continue the story.
From that point forward, it becomes like I said, a buddy road movie with a 91-year-old man who you think is going to now teach the kid what it means to be a man while on the road. While the kid, I kid you not, brought along his pet rooster, which really quickly flash forward to towards the end of the movie, the pet rooster actually saves the whole day at the end, but we'll talk about that later, right?
Oh,
and by the way, the rooster's name is Macho.
Right.
So this is the first part where I started to really worry. Like I started to worry really hard about the movie because up until this point, I'm like, okay, there has been some weird pacing stuff. I feel like things are moving way too fast, but simultaneously too slow, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
But I was still, because this is still really the first act. So I'm like, I'm still holding faith that what confusion I have will make sense later. And it's funny because I think it was around this point that like I turned to you and my dad and we all kind of had the same reaction. Like you were like, I'm kind of confused. I was like, dude, me too. And you're like, oh, thank God it's not just me. When we got to the part where we learned the rooster's name is Macho, that's when I was like, oh, this might be really bad. Like we might be in for a bad time here because the rooster is named Macho now. And so now I'm starting to recalibrate what I'm thinking about this in my head.
We were thinking this might be one of those movies where it starts off kind of bad and then it gets better. And then we realize, no, it's going to.
No, it's just bad.
It just gets worse.
It's just bad.
Right around at that same time is when I started zoning out.
Yeah.
And I would watch and then like I'm literally staring at the screen watching this movie and there's nobody home.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of stuff going on in my head. None of it have anything to do with Clint Eastwood.
Uh-huh.
So I can't tell you exactly what came next after that because I skipped. Next time I was conscious, they're getting he's teaching the kid how to ride a horse and how to treat a horse.
Go to a restaurant.
Where did they have time for this?
Well, so here's the thing.
Exactly.
I'll fill in some of the because I know exactly why Will zoned out.
Hold on. I have a very important question. Question.
Go ahead.
I just want to go back to what you said before. You said that he crossed the border from Texas into Mexico and then immediately was in Mexico City.
Yeah.
Why is it taking so long to get back to Texas?
Oh no, it was weeks, weeks for them to get back into
Yeah, and
Close to
here's
Texas.
That's the part that's killing me here. Because
That's
it
the part. That's
well, and it's funny because so I know why Will zoned out, because what really happens for like the entire second act really is kind of the same things repeat themselves over and over.
Yeah, it's very
because
episodic.
Yeah, because and to be fair, I totally forgot about them being literally in Mexico City, so it does make more sense why it took them so long to get back to Texas. Because while we were watching the movie, I'm like, why is this trip taking so long? Wasn't he just supposed to go get the kid and come back? Because on the way, he's right. They do stop to like teach him how to ride a horse and stuff like that. But they also stop in this town where there's like this little restaurant. Because I guess the mom sent the cops after them. That's the only thing I can think.
no.
No, they're the most efficient cops ever. We've already talked about this. They just knew someone was not supposed to be wherever they were at. The cops just knew they weren't supposed to be there.
No, she sent like her goons after them, right?
Her goons, right? And then her goons were after him, and then the cops got word that he was trying to smuggle the kid out. So then the cops were looking for him too.
Yeah.
And yet they were stopped by the cops no fewer than 3 or 4 times throughout the movie, and never once did they ask for ID and say, "Oh, this is the mofo we're looking for." None of that. None of that. So yes, to your point, Mick, they stop at this restaurant where the love interest happens to be at.
Yes, there is a love interest in this movie, Tom. Before we get to that, though,
91
for Clint Eastwood.
Yes, hang on. But before we get to that, I want to say something. I want to say something. I want to say something about the wife sending the ex-wife sending the goons after. So the first scene where one of her goons comes after him, like they're in this little diner thing, right? And this dude comes up. This is a goon, right? So think in your mind about all the movie goons you've ever seen in your life and like how they look, how they act. They generally have, I don't know, a weapon on them maybe. This man comes to get this kid not armed in any way, shape, or form. And when he tries to take the kid, 91-year-old Clint Eastwood just punches him in the face once. The dude's nose starts to bleed. He kind of recoils. And then there's this moment where he looks at Clint Eastwood with this look of like, okay, all right, as if like Clint Eastwood is like some kind of formidable challenge for him. That's literally what it is. And then he tries to get this other group of people who are off to the side in this scene to get to go after them. Like he says something in Spanish to them, basically saying like this man kidnapped this boy. But then the boy says in Spanish to them, like, no, he didn't. Like this guy is the real asshole or whatever. And so they end up jumping the goon.
Like you would do.
That was another thing. So all these people are closing in on Clint and the kid because the goon is saying he's trying to kidnap this kid and all that kind of stuff. And the kid, all he says is, no, it's a lie. He wants to take me back to my father, to my mother, who is the goon who has been beating me. And then he goes and he lifts his shirt and he sees all these scars on his back. And immediately the mob turns on the goon.
Yeah, and they
no questions asked.
Yeah,
none.
Yeah.
Well, he must be telling the truth, so they turn on the goon.
Sidebar though, but just because I'm curious, and it's such a fun word, and I'm curious. Will, do you know how to say? Or I'm asking you, ¿Cómo se dice goons en español? Because I don't know, and I'm wondering if there's a translation. ¿Cómo se dice
I don't
goons?
think that there is. I don't think there's a direct translation.
Henchman. There would be like a henchman kind of thing.
I'm glad that you brought that up because one of the things that Karen and I looked at each other and just cringed. I'm of Hispanic descent, and my wife is of Hispanic descent, and I don't think we've ever heard a worse Hispanic accent in any movie ever. Like it is like you couldn't even bother to cast Mexican actors in your movie. You had to get somebody from like
you're Clint Eastwood,
Chicago to play a Mexican. It was awful. It was awful. Like cringeworthy, terrible.
Was it a particular character or?
It was. Everybody. Every Mexican.
Oh yeah, everybody. I'm gonna be honest, guys.
Accent.
You guys have probably sold this film to me better than anything else. Like at the very least, I need to see this time jump happen. You know, I'm going to at least get to Mexico City. I'm going to at least watch through the really efficient police that forget the boy and the old man behind the crates. I'm at least going to see that.
You've got to watch it just to, because again, we cannot do this justice. Like this movie kind of does have to be seen to be believed, because like, so after this, it's really just kind of, they just repeat stuff. So like he mentioned, they go to this other little diner and there is a love interest for Clint Eastwood. There is this lady, Marta, who this,
how old is Marta?
So I was about to say this actress is probably in her 50s. Like she looks like she's probably in her 50s and looks good. Looks good.
She looks good.
Clint Eastwood is 91. And
he's 90 something.
And I don't know if Mike, the character that he plays, is meant to be that old. But here's the thing: Clint Eastwood is 91, and he looks every bit of 91. Yeah. That's kind of the problem.
Imagine a 55-year-old woman making eyes at the crypt keeper, and you'll have an idea of what this looks like.
And see, that's what's so sad, because I love Clint Eastwood. Like when we were talking about Clint Eastwood earlier, like what I was thinking in my head was like to bring it into like comic book terms, because we're all like superhero fans. In 1989, if we hadn't gotten Tim Burton's Batman in 1989 and instead someone had made a cinematic version of Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns, Clint Eastwood would have been the fucking man to cast. Which is interesting. As Bruce Wayne to do a move. Like he's the man. So it's like
interesting you said that, because
it's so sad. Like
in my mind, I got to tell you, because just because you said that, I don't know if you remember Batman Beyond, the where you had the older Batman. Yeah. Every time I would hear him talk and say Tim Conroy say these lines and everything there, I always thought to myself, man, if they ever make this movie, it'd be really dope if they could like do it before Clint Eastwood goes and dies, so they could get him to play Batman. That'd be awesome. Yes. Like, but, you know,
this isn't. But that's part of the sad part of watching this movie. Is it's like this is the first time where it's like, man, like Clint Eastwood really looks his age. There's really no getting around. He sounds it too. His voice is so weak in this movie.
You can tell by the way he moves too.
In all fairness, he looked his age in Gran Torino too. I mean, he's been looking rough for a while, but it worked in that movie.
Yes.
In this movie, he was trying to reclaim his past. And you're right. The perfect word for it is sad. It made me sad to watch this poor man trying to reclaim his glory.
Yeah. It's like, on the one hand, it's impressive that even at 91 he can still direct, produce, and star in
Absolutely.
the film.
Absolutely. No,
like that's amazing.
No question.
But at the same time, given what we've already seen him do, and how inspiring, especially to me, as some of his films have been, and then to see this, it's kind of like,
well, we've all worked in film, so we know some of the pitfalls, and I think everyone really agrees that it's really difficult to direct yourself in a film because you can't see things, you're not objective enough. I wish someone had said to Clint, "Dude, you're delivering the lines like a 91-year-old." Like his lines were so flat. Right. And he's never had a lot of inflection in his deliveries, but his deliveries this time, it hurt me to hear because it was the same inflection. It was the same delivery, everything. Oh, come here could have been the same as motherfucker, I'm going to kill you. Right. It's just not, it was bad. And
his voice is just so weak. And that's the thing. It's like, Clint Eastwood has always had that lower kind of raspy, but for years it was just badass. Like that was just, you associated that with like, yeah, he's badass. He's Clint Eastwood. He's got that. But now it's like, his voice is just it's a shadow. His voice is even a shadow of what it used to be. Yeah, and it is kind of hard to listen to like some of the way that he delivers these lines. But just to keep things moving along, because I know we're getting short on time, essentially, so he meets this love interest, Marta, like, and they hang out at her little eatery and she makes him some food and stuff like that. And then they kind of like, they move along to like this little chapel, I guess, more or less, and sort of camp out there because there's like a statue of the Virgin Mary in there, and there's like candles lit, which is weird because you're like, who lit those candles? Like those are freshly lit candles.
It's like the middle of the night. There's nobody in there.
Yeah,
and it's all lit.
And they hang out there, and then in the morning, Marta shows up with food, and so this is another weird like either time or distance jump because Carl and I looked at each other and we're like, wait a minute, did she walk all this way
Yeah,
to give them this food? Or like, did they just walk down the street? Because if that's the case, why didn't they just stay with her? Why'd they stay in this building if it's just down the street? Like,
because we saw them get in a car and drive around, and then we heard him say, once they saw another police stop or something, they're like, okay, we have to go back to the town we were in and stay there. But then they didn't make it clear that they were actually still in walking distance of that same town, or they weren't on like the outskirts or something. And then the very next day we see like, oh, if you just turn the camera the other way, it's like, oh, you can see the restaurant over there, but you couldn't tell.
Yeah, it's weird.
It was just like the geography was weird, the timing was weird.
Yeah, your sense of place is so jacked up in this movie. Your sense of place, your sense of time. Like if you're like trying to get your bearings in this world and just to establish like, where are we? When are we?
Yeah.
What's happening? Like, it's really difficult. Like fundamental things that are important, unless you're making a movie where the point is to confuse the viewer.
Yeah.
Which this was not that. Like it was just weird how everything was put together. And basically, Tom, this stuff basically just keeps repeating itself more or less. Like we see scenes of him training a horse. There's more stuff with Marta. There's more horse training. Like,
and I've got a couple of things I'd like to say.
Yeah,
just before I forget, to try to keep everything in order. Hopefully I can remember everything now that I know.
It's tough. There is a lot of repetition. The same things repeat themselves.
There is. He's talking about the horse training thing. One of those is we didn't realize until later on that he was actually getting paid for that.
Yeah. Yeah, like all of a sudden
it turns into a job.
Yeah, you see him training horses, or like you see him show up to this dude that's got a horse and they're just talking, and then like the kid's on the horse, so it's like, okay, I guess he's training him.
He's like teaching him, you need to know how to ride a horse before you go back to Texas.
Yeah, whatever. But then it's like you cut to the next scene and all of a sudden there's money exchanging hands. You're like, hold up, wait a second, did he just get a summer job? Like, what is going on here?
They don't talk very much about the manhood aspect, but they do talk a lot about trust.
Yeah,
and who you can trust, and can you trust the dad, and can you trust Clint? And the kid is always saying you can't trust anybody, and it's like, but you're trusting Clint Eastwood, who you just met.
Yeah, and this is probably a great time to bring up. This is the next really dumb thing that happens in this movie with Dwight Yoakam. Clint Eastwood calls him like to just kind of give a progress report or whatever, or check in and say, here's what we're up to. Dwight Yoakam's character then, for some weird reason, decides to tell Clint Eastwood, oh, by the way, I have actually like some pretty like crappy motives for wanting my kid back.
Right.
Like it turns out that like me and my ex, like there were some investments that I made in her name to avoid the Mexican taxes, but now like those investments are starting to pay off and I want to get my cut, but she won't give it to me. So, hey, I figure if I've got my kid back and she wants him, like maybe she'll give me the money. And I'm sitting here going like, why are you telling him this? You don't have to say these things.
Yeah, that would have been a good reveal. Like once the son gets there,
like you're just volunteering this information weirdly out of nowhere. And so now Clint Eastwood's like, why would he bring you the kid back now?
Or
like,
it could have been a really cool type of dramatic irony where maybe the audience could find out that that's a motivation. Right. We have a scene with Yoakam that Clint Eastwood's not there, and then the audience knows, but Clint and the kid don't know. There's so many storytelling things that you could have done with that to be interesting.
Like in a good movie, that's what would have happened.
and I know it's different because it started as a novel and it's going to a film and all of that, but there was just and another thing, continuing about the things being disjointed, even before they get the two more things at the beginning of the phone call. Yoakam says like, you were supposed to be here, this was only supposed to take a couple days. It's been 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're like, wait a minute.
We were like, it's been 2 weeks? We thought this was only happening over the course of a few days.
Yeah. We thought this was like day 3 or whatever. And it's like, no, it's 2 weeks later. And then the other thing, even before that, when they go back to Martha's restaurant, the local sheriff.
They go back? Why would they go back?
Because
they go back several times.
Yeah. So this is after she's brought them breakfast.
Yeah.
They were staying in the chapel or whatever, or the shrine, and then they go back, and the police sees them and like wants to go check them out, but then she sees the police, and then just like takes the sign on the door and so it says open and just changes it. Now it says closed.
And she draws the shades like a couple inches, like not even all the way down.
And then
just
the police stop and they
just
don't
leave.
go in the restaurant.
So saying all that to say, this movie is a lot of things almost happening and then not happening.
Wait. We were back in America, right?
No.
Oh, it was still in Mexico. Okay, no, I believe that then. I believe that the cops decided, oh no, we're super efficient, but not. So we'll go to the door, but once she closes the blinds, that's it, man.
This is another case where it's so disjointed, it's almost like cartoon logic.
Yeah.
Just like with the
it felt very much like that. Yeah.
Where it's like in a cartoon, it would kind of work for Clint to hide behind the crates and avoid the police.
Right.
And then
It's
the
like
kid
Bugs
to pop
Bunny's
out.
air
It kind
brakes.
of work.
Yeah.
Or like the police walk by and then you draw the shades and then you don't, and then it's like, oh, poof. If it was like some kind of animated,
right.
Like
there's a lot
thing,
of unintentional comedy in this movie.
But because it's live action and it's supposed to be serious, it is unintentionally funny.
Yeah. So,
so guys,
Will,
I take it that you didn't like the movie.
No, and so here I'll just.
It did not make my day.
We can wrap this up actually pretty quickly.
Yes.
We can actually kind of wrap up the plot of this really quickly because really the second act is a lot of that stuff repeating, and Clint Eastwood kind of like starts to sort of like just become Marta's boyfriend and whatnot. And
he's like the instant grandpa.
Yeah, he's kind of like the live-in granddad to her grandkids and stuff like. I mean, it's nice, but it's also weird because it just is. But anyway, this stuff just kind of keeps happening over and over again. Eventually, they get back in the car, finish their trip. They get stopped by some cops again, but again, it doesn't turn into anything. Like they
get stopped by the cops a lot.
They ransack the car and they look for drugs, and then the kid just ends up bribing the cops with some money, and then they just leave. So it's like every time there is some tension building, it's just kind of cut off and nothing comes of it. Yeah. So they're accosted by the goon one last time. And to Will's point, this is where we get to what Will was talking about with Macho, the chicken, the rooster. They're accosted by the goon. This time, though, I will say this is possibly the only character development in the whole movie. The goon has a gun this time. The goon finally brought a piece with him. He finally brought a weapon. So at least he's kind of a somewhat competent goon. But as Will said, he has them at gunpoint, and then the rooster just jumps out of the car and like flaps his wings in his face, and he like an idiot falls down, drops the gun.
Like a cartoon.
Yeah, Clint Eastwood picks up the gun, and then they just get in the goon's car and finish their trip back to Texas. And here's the thing, man. Here's how this movie ends. This is how this movie ends. He gives the kid back. So Dwight Yoakam is just waiting at the border. He's just waiting right at the exact place that they happen to be at where they're crossing the border. Dwight Yoakam is there. Clint Eastwood kid just goes. Clint Eastwood lets a kid out. Kid goes to his dad. Another fade out. And at this point, we're sitting there like, oh, my God, is this how it ends? Oh, no. We fade out. And then we fade back in again. And we fade in Clint Eastwood dancing with Marta in the restaurant.
Story. Yes.
And that is how it ends. Then it fades out, and that's how the movie ends. We never find out anything about Dwight Yoakam and the kid when they get back together. There's never anything more about the mom. None of that stuff is ever addressed. It's just fade in or fade out, fade into Clint Eastwood's fantasy.
Yep, he just went to the quantum field, went back in time, and found his love of his life back in time. And then, oh no, wait, that was a different movie. No, but literally, fade to black while he and Marta are dancing in the diner. That's the movie.
That's the end of the movie. That is the end of the movie.
When those credits started coming up, I could not turn that stuff off fast enough. I didn't even look. I'm trained. I'm a Marvelite, right? I'm trained. Maybe there's an after credit scene. I didn't care. I did not care. I could not have turned that off fast enough.
Right before he sends the kid away, the kid is like, I want you to take care of Macho for me. And so
he gives him the chicken. He gives him the rooster.
And so we were like,
nice
at the restaurant, they're like, eat Macho.
That'd be great because there is a line early in the movie where when Clint Eastwood first picks up the kid and he wants the rooster to sit in the front seat, and Clint Eastwood's character is just like, the day he sits in the front seat is the day I barbecue him. So at the end of the movie, when he gives him Macho, like, wouldn't it be amazing if like he goes back to Marta's restaurant and they just cook the chicken and eat it, and that's the end of the movie?
This is one of those things where you could take the film and recut it into like a comedy trailer. You could take the film, cut a new trailer for it, and make it seem like a road trip comedy.
And Tom, if it feels like we've left stuff out, if it feels like there are plot points that you've missed, or if it feels like we haven't given you enough context and you're thinking to yourself, surely there has to be more to this story than what I've heard these guys say. Nope.
I gotta be totally honest.
We have left
I gotta be
nothing
totally
out.
honest. This movie sounds exhausting.
So on the one hand, there's like
It is.
Sounds like it's a long, just a long snail of a movie to watch.
And it's not that long.
Except it's a short movie.
It's 100 minutes. It's not that long, but
That's
it's like
sad.
it feels like they took a slow-paced movie and they cut out all of the action bits and gave you the 100 minutes of the slower-paced parts. But at the same time, though, it's also, like I said, it also moves fast in a weird way. Because of the way it's edited and because there is so much information that you don't know, it feels fast in that way, but it is also slow. It's a weird paradox, man.
It's rushed.
I started by saying that the pacing of the movie felt like the age of the character, right? It wasn't just the pacing; it's also the dysfunctional. I mean, like that might be how a 91-year-old's mind works. Like skips parts and they don't remember stuff.
It is so funny you say that because when we were watching the movie, at some point I just turned to Carl and my dad and I was like, it'd be amazing if this movie ends and there's like this crazy twist where Clint Eastwood's character is just like a guy with Alzheimer's and he's like just getting fed by his daughter and this whole movie has just been like what's in his head the whole time. And like that's what is going on in his mind. No, that didn't happen.
I would have stood up and saluted that had that happened because then I would have been like, yes.
Yeah.
It would have made the entire thing watchable at that point, but nope.
It was so weird, dude. Like it was, and it was such a disappointment. Again, like when we talk about Clint Eastwood movies and you know what the really good ones mean to us and stuff like that, it is inconceivable to me that the same man who, I mean, really just Gran Torino was only 13 years ago? Not that long ago in the grand scheme of things. It's inconceivable to me that the same man who made that movie not that long ago made this one. And like, I guess clearly is proud of it because it's out and it's out there. And that's, you know, I can't fathom it. It's so weird. Like from a storytelling perspective, it is so below the level of like what he normally does. Like,
you know, when you throw a party and you're down to like that last guest and you're looking at yourself and your wife and you're going, God, Jesus Christ, is this guy ever going to leave the party? What the hell? It's time we're going to go to bed. Clint Eastwood is that guest. He is overstayed his welcome. And I hate myself for saying that, but this movie shows me that no, man, it's time to go off into the dark and, you know,
hang up your
he needs to
spurs,
do
sir.
the Sean Connery route, right? You have given us wonderful movies. It's time to hang it up and just relax now. Thank you for your services, but no more.
It's sad. It's sad, man. But anyway, so now after hearing all that, Tom, what do you think of our retelling of the movie?
Are you in?
No.
You look about as thrilled as I felt.
I did not. Like I said, I got to be honest. The movie I thought I was going to get was exactly what Nick described at the beginning. So when we talked about like when I was saying before, you know, I didn't get a chance to finish it or get a chance to watch it and everything. That wasn't because I didn't plan on doing that, you know. That idea sounds like a good movie.
Yeah,
and
like
something that I think that I feel like if Clint Eastwood had made that the movie that Nick pitched at the jump, that probably would have been fine. But when I found out from hearing you guys that I'm not getting that movie,
nope.
And then what I am getting is a mess.
Yeah,
quite frankly,
you're getting a part of that movie. Like you're getting because I feel like that movie could be in there, but it doesn't have all the pieces. Like it's weird. This movie feels like a movie that should have been 2+ hours long, and they left out a bunch of really important stuff that would have made it better.
But at the same time, added stuff that was very clunky.
Yeah,
like there's information that we need that they gave us the wrong way, and then there's other information that we need that we never got at all.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. Yeah,
Right.
And
Yeah. It's very
Well,
sad.
I say we bury it and put it to bed.
I agree.
yeah. It's look. If you, I can say this though. If you are like us, and if you enjoy watching bad movies with your friends on purpose because they're fun to make fun of, I absolutely wholeheartedly recommend this, because me and Carl and my dad actually we made it fun. The experience of watching it with the three of us made the movie fun to watch, but it is objectively not a good movie. So I can only recommend it in that context. Otherwise, there's no way in hell I can recommend
sad that
this.
that is the context that we're putting it into.
Yeah.
Because we're all huge fans.
Yeah.
Of
All right.
Clint Eastwood. So
Yeah.
All right. So we are all in agreement, including Tom, who didn't even watch the movie. So
Yeah, it was crap. Trash.
as always, it has been an absolute pleasure dissecting the movie. Sadly, it wasn't a great one. So hopefully next week will be better. Now, we don't have any idea.
Patient didn't make it.
No, we don't have any idea what next week's show is going to be. So it'll be a surprise to us just as much as it will be to you. We're going to talk offline. We're going to figure that out, because I don't want to make another mistake again.
It'll be good. Look, but hey, this was still a good discussion. It's a good conversation. You know what I mean? Like, here's the thing. We can promise you this. The movies may not always be good, but our conversations will be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If we don't say ourselves, or we say so ourselves, whatever that's.
Yeah. And I would like to just extend a thank you to my buddy Carl for being our first guest here on the podcast.
And thank you for having me. It's been so fun.
Absolutely. You brought some great insights into the world of Macho. So thanks for.
Yes.
Sucks we had to have you watch such a crappy movie, though.
Well, he had fun with it, so.
Yeah, well, when Nick told me what we were going to watch, I was like, I don't know if I know about that one. He said, it's Clint Eastwood's movie. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, just based on that, you're in. But you know.
I'm like, one of my favorite directors? Okay, yes, please.
Yeah.
They knew you guys would do that. That's why they put the advertisement out there. They're just like, Clint Eastwood, guys. Clint Eastwood did a movie. And everybody's like, okay.
Yep. Hey, kudos to them, man. It worked. It worked for me, for sure. I was in hook, line, and sinker. But all right, we are way out of time. Thank you, all of you, for another spirited conversation. And for you, listener, thank you for sitting through. And we hope that you enjoyed it. If you watched Cry Macho and somehow you liked the movie, we'd love to hear about how in the world you liked it. But if you didn't like it,
why?
we'd love to hear.
If you did, yes, we do want to hear from you, because that's a perspective I can't have. So please, if you're watching this on YouTube, please sound off in the comments. We have an email address, letsgetreelmoviepod @gmail.com. Please email us if you have movies that you would like us to watch, topics you'd like us to discuss. Please hit us up. We will do so. We've got YouTube, email. We've got other stuff that I'm drawing a blank on, but Will knows.
You could always subscribe to the show on any of the major podcasting platforms, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all of the above. You cannot get away from us because we are in your house everywhere. So
yes, and
thanks again for listening in.
And we're also going to link, as we said, we'll link to Carl's YouTube channel in the comments as well. The Story Losifer. Please check him out. He's got great content.
Yep.
If
we will have all of the links.
If you're a screenwriter and you want to level up the game, check out my stuff. Story Losifer.
We'll add all the links to Carl's stuff as well as to all our stuff in the show notes, so it'll be easy for you to find.
Yes.
Okay. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much. We'll see you again next time on Let's Get Real.